Hello, all you crazy cats out in the Dinks world. It's Jeff Horowitz, your old buddy from Dennis in the Know. Yes, Dennis in the Know, your backstage past current trends, politics, and education in the dental world. We are live, and I'd love to say we're over a cocktail. Well, maybe it's kind of a cocktail. It's a little bit of a hot toddy because, all the traveling, there's so much garbage going around. But I've got to be true to the show. So a little bit of a hot toddy. Anyway, I am joined after a great weekend in Tulum, Mexico. I am joined by Dr. Jennifer Bell. And the two of us, along with our other amigo, Dr. Chad Duplantis, just spent the weekend in Tulum with the ADA organization, the American Independent Dental Alliance. And we were there for a wonderful Aspire event, which was 3 days, some great CEs, some great parties, and mostly just a lot of camaraderie of like-minded dentists. What an amazing weekend. I think we're all a little run down from that. Dr. Duplantis is off today. He's already on his way to another meeting, which Dr. Jennifer Bell will be leaving for tomorrow. So, it's the hustle bustle. We're back to it. Anyway, we are your backstage pass for all things in dentistry. And the three of us are all educators. We are all dentists and we are all business owners. Our job here at Dentists in the Know is to bring you in the know. And it was a little toned down today. Maybe not as exciting. I'm afraid if I raise my voice too much, I might start coughing.
You might lose it.
Yeah. But how are you, JB?
I'm good. I'm also recovering. It's funny. I was on the mend when I left for Mexico to join you. But everybody on that plane was hacking like it was a pastime. So goodness knows what was being spread in that flying fuselage for however long that we were riding. So there were many people who were down. The two people I was sitting beside were not in great shape. So, it is what it is.
Yeah. I was kind of destined to happen, right?
Yeah. It seems like it might be pretty active right now. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I'm leaving tomorrow because, who wants to let grass grow under their feet? So I was with you in Tulum last weekend, and then I'm joining Chad in Aruba. I'm leaving tomorrow for the Clinician's Choice Conference, and we're both speaking down there. So yeah, it always feels like Q1 is a little bit of a race, like the Fast and Furious.
Yeah, and it is from the time New Year's until the Chicago Midwinter Dental Meeting. Just seems like it just flies by,
it'll be nonstop,
right?
And we're gearing up. I worked a lot today on our booth and getting everything set up for all that. Because for those who are new to the audience or haven't listened to us in the past, we live broadcast and record broadcast on the show floor at Midwinter, which has been a really cool experience. We get to bring awesome people into the booth for a little one-on-one, 20-minute intimate conversation, which I thought were some of the best conversations we had all year. So I'm really excited.
They were great. That booth was just awesome. And I mean, and I think it really, the people who walked by too, they're like props, man. That was pretty badass what we did. And
it was pretty awesome.
And I say we, but
it was we. It was we.
Well, it was a really neat booth. And so if you're going to be at Chicago Midwinter, please come by and see us. We might just pull you into the booth and
you never know.
Yeah.
And we're one of the few booths on the floor that's not selling you a gosh darn thing.
That's right. We promise not to squirt hand sanitizer.
No hand
or any type of
sanitizers or massaging
cream.
chairs.
Yeah.
Last year though, we were too close to the ergonomic chair place, and we ended up having a little bit of a fun, eventful race using their ergonomic chairs, which did not go well for you.
No, it didn't go well for me. It didn't go well for Chad either because he bought one and his partner was pissed. His partner was still bitching about it down in Cancun.
Are you serious?
He did. We were at dinner. He's like, that damn Chad, he come back with one of them horsey chairs or something. He's always got to come back with something. He's funny.
I think he felt bad because it was like, you break it, you buy it kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's what it was too. But anyway, do you know who's with us tonight?
Don't you tell.
Speaking of people who are just running the roads up and down, we have someone who really could not spare the time and did decide to take some time and spend it with us. Dr. Brett Kessler, the president of the American Dental Association, is with us tonight. And I could not be more appreciative. Excuse me. Take it over, JB.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Sorry. We are really excited to have Dr. Kessler join us tonight as Jeff recovers from the typhoid fever. Anyway, no.
Just a touch of TB.
Just a little bit of the TB there. We're really excited to have him on. And Jeff hit the nail on the head when he said, for someone who doesn't actually have any time to spare, he took time out to come on and have some really fun conversations about some of the big priorities that are happening in the ADA right now. You know, we're early in his term, although he probably feels like it's both been very short and very long simultaneously. And obviously we have a new federal administration as well, which I'm sure is adding some interesting layers of complexity during his presidency and how all these things kind of tie together. So there's lots to talk about for sure.
Well,
so I'm glad he came to join us.
I can't wait to get into the conversation. And, but one other topic, I got to bring this up.
Let's go.
Because while I was gone, so my team was actually working. So the sleep team, the sleep TMJ team in particular, is able to work while I am not there. And it was really interesting because we share an office with a physician, with a retinal specialist. They have one side, we have the other. Now we share a waiting room, everything. So, on last Monday, I was already gone. Last Monday, this particular physician came in and he was sick as a dog. I mean, he was coughing. He had, and again, I'm not going to mention any names or anything like that. But it raises a particular question, which is why I'm bringing this up. So he comes in, he's really, really sick, but apparently feels like he needs to come in and produce, makes his entire team sick. It turns out to be the flu, makes my entire team sick, doesn't say anything to my team. And he's just coughing all around the office, writes his whole team. He says, I'm sorry. And he writes his whole team, scripts for Tamiflu.
Tamiflu.
Yeah. But doesn't say anything to my team. And I'm away. My entire team gets sick. All of them, every single one in that office was down. One of them brought it home to her husband, who is a 9/11 survivor and has, all of the respiratory issues that many of the firefighters and first responders have. And now he's in really bad shape. And so it raises the question, and also come to find out now, this is an eye physician, and he went in and did a surgery that morning, which most of the surgeries he does, 95% of the surgeries he does are elective. That is, they are not life-threatening. They will improve quality of life. But where do you draw the line? Because we all sometimes feel this pressure that we can't let the whole thing shut down. But where do you draw the line? When is it time to say, no, I'm not going to endanger the people around me. I'm not going to potentially compromise my patients, because I'm really kind of irritated at what he did. I've gone in feeling a little off or a little bad, but I've never gone on in like with a fever or knowing that I was contagious. So it just raises a rhetorical question of where do you draw the line?
Yeah. And I would have thought COVID would make most of us a little bit more aware, like just follow the same protocols that you would have followed before.
Don't you think it went the other way now? Like it kind of got, people just
maybe
got so sick.
It may have totally backfired.
Right.
Yeah. I also will argue that it seems like the epidemic of being sick has upticked as well.
Yeah.
So like people, at least I know quite a few people who just, it seems like they're chronically sick. They get the flu and then they're better for a month or two and then they get something else. And I can appreciate where there may be a fatigue syndrome happening. I don't know that that's this person in particular, but I have seen like this repeat occurrence of viral illnesses sort of going on and on and on and on. And what's the point? Do you draw the line? You're like, I mean, I can't not go to work ever. And how do you gradient? This one's worse than the others. And
that's my point is, where do you draw that line?
I don't know.
Where do you say, I'm putting people at risk, or, the good that I'm going to do is not as worthy as the harm that I'm going to cause. And so, I mean, I know it was probably a struggle for him, but he made a lot of people very, very ill.
Yeah.
And his patient pool is elderly, and an entire office team went down, and one of them had to go to the hospital. So, it's just one of those things. It's been in my head, and I really just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I've heard about a super spreader event, but I think that was one.
Yeah, it pretty much was. So
remember how that used to be the thing during COVID? People would go to a concert or whatever, or a wedding, and everyone would come down with COVID afterwards.
Yep. There's well, actually the first year we went, I think everybody came down with something in Mexico, but who knows? Anyway, I don't want to keep our guest who has really given us some of his time, and I don't want to keep him waiting. So why don't you do some news, and we'll bring Dr. Kessler on.
Got it.
Okay. Sounds good, JB.
Would be my honor. All right. So there's quite a few things going on in the world. I will say it had been kind of quiet and a little bit of a lull in the news arena because we were transitioning federal offices. We had an election, new president was coming in. So there's always that weird time in the legislative cycle where things get a little bit quiet or definitely tick down. But we're back full force. Activities are happening pretty consistently on a daily basis now. Let's talk non-politics first, and then we'll get a little bit into the politics. So first is, we've talked about this a couple of times on a few previous episodes. There is a settlement out there for Visa and MasterCard, somewhere in the ballpark of $5.5 to $6.2 billion of payments that are going to be issued primarily to small businesses for what was deemed by a court to be some fraudulent upcharging of merchant services fees, processing fees, etc. And so there's been this active recruitment to bring in anybody who feels like they might be entitled to some recuperation of that money. The deadline has now been finalized for Feb 4, I believe. Let me just confirm that really quickly. But I think Feb 4, that's going to be the deadline for filing that. You will be eligible for any proceeds that are distributed out if you meet that deadline. If you miss the deadline, then you'll miss the boat on retroactively trying to recoup money. So if you haven't done that yet, you've got a few days yet to do a little research. Of course, as with any of these activities, there's law firms out there that are happy to help you file for a percentage of those proceeds. And if you would like that support, they're available and out there for you as well. I think there's a few that have been recommended by various entities, organized dental groups, et cetera, if you want to reach out. But Feb 4 is going to be your deadline. So that's next week if you want to have access to those proceeds. All right, now let's get a little bit more into the politics. So, we've been talking about fluoride for the last couple of months. Really hit ahead last summer. Really hit ahead last summer when we had a judge out of California pretty much defer the ruling back to the EPA to challenge municipal water supply fluoridation, and to say, we really need to go back and look at the research to make a determination whether or not municipal water supplies are safe when they're fluoridated, et cetera. Well, it hit news again this week As you may or may not know, Robert Kennedy Jr. is up for confirmation in the Senate for Secretary of Health and Human Services. And of course, one of his campaign talking points was fluoride in municipal water sources and the general concern of low IQ and mental IQ issues that might be associated with overfluoridated populations. And JAMA published an article just recently citing a study, a meta-analysis study that had been completed that was suggesting that additional research is warranted. They looked at other countries and water supply sources, overfluoridation in some areas, underfluoridation in others, to try to make some determination. And at least some correlation was noted, no causality. And there certainly was a lot of holes in the study. So I think additional research is going to be required in order for us to continue to make sure that the science is sound. The ADA and most other organized dental groups continues to support municipal water fluoridation programs. And the study did validate at the level that is recommended by the ADA, there was no correlation with mental retardation at that particular level. My only challenge to all of these stories and my only challenge to the data that currently exists, particularly in the United States, is the trickle down and overfluoridation of application procedures that we're seeing for kids. And I think that's going to be a much harder thing for us to quantify. For instance, if Pepsi Cola is making all of their soda using a municipal water supply source to make that soda, how much trickle down fluoride is coming through that particular company in juices and sodas and vitamin waters and et cetera? If the source is municipal water, we have fluoridation. If the pediatricians are now doing fluoride varnish and the dentists and the pediatric dentists are doing fluoride varnish, what's the recommended total dosage for a pediatric patient over the course of a year if everybody is now billing those services and treating patients that way? So I don't have an issue with fluoride in and of itself. It's now in so much of the things we consume. It's in our municipal water supply, and we have multiple medical providers also providing the service unchecked with one another, right? I have no idea if that kid had a fluoride treatment 2 weeks ago at his pediatrician. Unless mom discloses that to me, she consents to a secondary fluoride treatment and we proceed with that. So regardless of your belief of the municipal water supply issue, I do think it highlights a really good opportunity for us as a scientific body to come together to say, look, it's not just municipal water supplies anymore. There's all of these other environmental factors that, are at play. And I do think we need to have a general understanding of what's an allowable amount of exposure, an allowable amount of consumption for our pediatric patients. And that, I think, is a much more productive use of our time generally to figure out how we can best take care of our pediatric and protect our most vulnerable population, right? Who depends on us to be making sound decisions based on science. That's my soapbox on fluoride. The last topic we'll talk about tonight is a real recent news story. In fact, as of yesterday, when Trump put an injunction in on all spending for federal programs and a variety of different programs to sort of stop this check writing mechanism that was in place. And I think in fairness to a new administration to basically kind of have a hot level reset to say, hang on, I want to make sure that the things that are walking out are in alignment with the beliefs that we have and what we were elected for. So I can respect that. And I think Biden would have done the same thing to make sure that if funding was going out for programs that were in direct conflict with what Biden was elected for, I think he would have considered the same thing. As 24 hours have sort of unfolded on that payment stop, most states have said funds are still flowing for dental health services related to reimbursements, et cetera. So continue to provide those services to the population, continue to bill the state and federal programs for those services. That does not seem to have stopped. And I do think there's still some muddy water that's being worked out, but it looks like the ADA is involved. There are many other organizations and a court also is now involved, kind of getting some clarity on what that stop payment looks like. and what programs are directly and maybe indirectly, unbeknownst, impacted, and how we can clear up the language on that while also trying to reset objectives and goals for other federal spending. So ADA is working pretty hard on that to stay on top of what this may mean for the dentists out there. So certainly continue to communicate to the ADA to let them know if you have unique situations that are coming up so that they can be your voice and make sure that those unique scenarios are being reported so that they can continue to tweak the language. And in fact, in that same vein, the ADA published a letter to Trump's administration just this week as well, highlighting the importance of oral health in all health objectives and federal objectives for the next 4 years, and to make sure that oral health continues to have a seat at the table when we're discussing chronic diseases and overall systemic oral connections. Really glad to see that we're wanting to continue to have a voice and to be a part of the conversation, and that the ADA is continuing to advocate for that. Because, it wasn't that long ago that we were originally deemed non-essential employees. And so it is vitally important that the ADA continue to put oral health at the forefront of any administration's mind to make sure that we're considering all facets of a healthy population. And with that, that's the news.
What a great segment. That was really good. And I'll tell you.
Thank you.
Well, it exemplifies that, so many times all of us are responsible for these kind of knee-jerk reactions, like what they want to take fluoride away, or, what they're cutting all funding. We never really stop to consider the paradigms of the different entities involved in all of these situations.
Right.
And yes, there is room for conversation on all of these issues. I mean, my first response to the fluoride thing is, wait a minute, dentistry single-handedly stopped, the most common disease in childhood. We were responsible for stopping that with fluoride. So of course we all hold that near and dear to our hearts, but you have to really stop and consider all the things that you just talked about, which are, are they using municipal water supplies, for the beverages and for some of the other products, and where are they getting adjunctive fluoride supplementation? So I just think it was a great segment, and hopefully the takeaway from that is for everyone just to kind of always take that big breath before jumping in and wanting to jump down someone's throat. So with that, why don't you introduce our guest?
Well, I mean, is an introduction required for the president of the ADA? I mean, the last time he was on, he was president-elect, but his title has been changed. And we're incredibly honored that he's carving a little time out of a very long travel schedule to come join us and be a part of the conversation. So it is my honor and privilege to welcome Dr. Brett Kessler to the program again for the second time to talk about some of these hot topics that have come up and a few others that have been in the news lately, and maybe just continue to peel back the onion a little bit and see what's really going on. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Jeff.
Welcome. Live from the Yankee Dental Meeting.
Live from the Yankee Dental Meeting.
Yeah.
Massachusetts. Let's go. Come on. It's the 100th anniversary.
Temperature.
Live from the downtown Omni Hotel.
50th anniversary. I think it's the 50th anniversary of Yankee. So, but
nice.
Big deal. Big deal.
Very cool. So what's on the agenda? Tell us, what are your priorities? So you run out to Yankee Dental Meeting. I mean, because Lord knows you're at one place after the next. So, you've got to have like a priority list of some type. Here's what I got to get across. Here's what I've got to get done at this meeting. I'm curious what that is.
This meeting, I just get to be, and I get to meet with people. We got an awards ceremony tomorrow, which I'm excited to partake in. But for the most part, it's all the other things that Jennifer was just talking about. Try to keep up with that and be an ambassador of the profession, and try and create some clarity to these rippled waters right now. It's a lot going on I'm going to answer a couple of questions that you brought up, Jennifer, if that's okay, around, what is the right amount of fluoride? And so we are a science-based organization. And so, the science, we have to go with science, and we make our decisions with the best information that we have at the time. And I think it was 2016, maybe 2017, the EPA did lower the fluoride levels in the community water source recommendations because of exactly what you said. People were getting fluoride from multiple sources, including dentists, as well as Coca-Cola and other beverages and stuff from community waters. And so they lowered it from 1.2, 1.3 to 0.7. And right now that is the science. They figured all that out. They aggregated all the possible sources on a public health model, and that's where they came up with the recommendation. The EPA was challenged in court about it several months ago, and they ruled that it doesn't have to go in. That more studies need to happen. And we thought that was a little bit irresponsible, and we were pushing really hard for an appeal. And literally the day before the deadline of appeal, the EPA did appeal it. And it is going to be considered in court again. And we are filing opinions and briefs on that to the EPA and to the judicial system so that we can maintain the fluoride in the water. But if the science says we're getting too much, let's lower it. Everything's in the spirit of the safety of our patients and in the health, improving the health of their patients. And so we are, we know it works. We don't see the side effects that the media has blown up, and so we're going to fight for the science as it is now. Today, the hearings for RFK Jr. was going on, and that's a complicated situation. And the whole, new administration, it's a complicated situation. And, there were people, over half the country was real excited. And this included the dentists that were really, really excited that the Trump administration won. There were people that were really mad that the Biden administration lost. And I was thinking, the Biden administration didn't really, from a dentistry standpoint, Biden didn't really listen to us much anyway. I don't think we'll get, any more or less with the Trump administration, but we were working with both teams, both campaigns throughout the last year to push our agenda. And that's what we have to do because we are governed by rules and laws, but there are not a lot of dentists in Congress. And so we have to lobby for what we know is best. And so we've been working with them. And then when the Trump administration won, we were working with their transition team to make sure that they know who we are. And the Washington Post article that was published last week, Sunday, was a big part of that. We've been very shy about getting out there and being proactive with things that we know that could really help our communities and help our citizens, help our patients. And so we decided to publish this editorial and say, hey, we are the ADA. This is who we are. This is what we stand for. This is what we need to do to make America healthy from a dental perspective, and it will improve the overall health too. And so we decided to publish it. Similar letter went to, so that was, I don't know if President Trump read the Washington Post that day, but it was strategically placed the Sunday, biggest paper day of the week, the Sunday before the inauguration, where everyone in the world's coming in and into town, into Washington. We wanted it to have maximum visibility. And I could tell you reprints of this or stories about this editorial has appeared across the globe. I got a news article from Pakistan yesterday describing our editorial. So the world is watching us because we are the biggest lever in the profession of dentistry. So it's kind of cool. Similar letters went to each member of Congress, and a personal letter from the ADA went to President Trump describing in great detail things that we need to do. And we're ready to stand up for it. It's a pretty exciting time.
Was it the best letter ever written?
Ever.
Best,
The best.
the best.
Second to the letter that I wrote.
Never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Second to the letter that I wrote to apply to dental school, I guess. But yeah.
There you go. There you go.
That was the best.
Do you think it's time, just to kind of put a capstone on the fluoride discussion, because as a parent who was approached by my pediatric office for fluoride treatment, is it time for the ADA and for the pediatric, like Medical Pediatric Association, to get together to start to talk about topical applications of fluoride? Because that's now a service that they are providing pretty routinely in their own pediatric offices. Maybe not even with best practices, which was my experience of how is it best applied in the most efficacious way, and with a caries risk assessment, diet and oral hygiene, like it comes along with topical talking points, which may or may not be happening in the pediatric office. So what is our role? How can ADA be involved with that? Because I do think that could be a really, again, it's that collective exposure over a child's, annual cycle. How many times are they exposed to that? And how do we start educating the population on what's the safety amount around that? Because we don't, dentists don't always know, and pediatricians don't always know.
And let me piggyback on that before you answer, Brett, if that's okay. Obviously, there's the same concerns in that a dental hygienist or a dentist may understand that these materials are not meant to be ingested. And, what that does to systemic fluoride levels versus topical fluoride levels. And so does it become something like with oral appliance therapy for sleep apnea, where really it only should be performed by a dental office? Or are we losing too much access to care by saying only dentists or dental offices or hygiene practices should be providing that service?
It's a great question. Currently, the dental profession treats about 42% of our citizens. 58% of Americans don't go to the dentist.
Yeah.
And
so access to care.
So what do we do about that? Many go, many don't go because they don't feel it's necessary. So that's why oral health literacy was part of my editorial. But many don't go because they don't have resources, and they don't have any benefits, or they don't have time. And so it is one of those things. And that's what we're most worried about with the fluoride going away in several communities across our country right now, is that the lower income socioeconomic demographics, we're going to see a 25 to 35% increase in caries. And but how much is too much? Medicine is so siloed, dentistry is so siloed. We don't know what one hand is doing and the other is doing, and so we love our patients, but they're horrible historians, and they don't remember things.
Not mine. Mine are really good.
Yeah, mine were definitely above the line, the panky line. But so it's a tough question. Again, we have to use public health modeling that is established to do the best that we can with what we have. It won't be perfect for everybody, but as a population, it's the best model that we have right now. And nothing's changed a year ago to today, except the political climate. Yeah. Okay. The studies are still the same. And as you mentioned, some of the JAMA article, it was over twice the amount of fluoride where they're seeing it. And even then, is it really true? Fluoride isn't the only factor in these communities' lives. Right. Yeah. There's diet, there's habits, there's social things. I mean,
they didn't mention the asbestos removal going on in the school, right, at the same time.
These aren't kids living in test tubes.
Right.
Okay. So there's so many things there that were flawed with that study. And so anyway, we are, keeping an eye on it. And, and we were hoping to create a study that would be funded by NIH to really see exactly how much fluoride is being ingested throughout all these sources, and through the habits of people going to the dentist versus not going to the dentist. People are at more risk for cavities, based on social determinants of health. But NIH funding is in flux right now. So everything's just on pause. So, but once that gets turned on, and NIH might be restructuring the dental cranial research, NIDCR. We've got that on one of our high agenda items to start creating that study. So good time.
I think if RFK Jr. is appointed, I actually think that would be a study that he would be quite in favor of, because I do think he's driven to try to at least find. My point in all of this, I think, is that at least it's good to keep asking the questions, to keep going back to saying, are we continuing to do the best? And you never want to be complacent in science. So you want to make sure you are constantly revisiting that data to make sure that we are being mindful, and that as populations change, as risks change, as exposures change, and all that we're evolving, and readily changing as that needs to happen. And the government's biggest downfall is how slow any of that actually occurs, right? If you want to change something, it takes years, decades to actually move that mountain, and it should be much more responsive than that.
Yeah, it's really tough to put these together, and we're dealing with people in power that really have no idea about dentistry and questionable about what they know about health. And but RFK, I think he'll be he'll be approved by the Senate. I think he will. But you never know in this administration.
Yeah, you don't.
But there are things that he talks about. So he's already, RFK has already softened his stance on vaccines in his opening statement, and he just wants people to be safe. And his kids are vaccinated, I think he admitted. And, there are some people that will have problems with vaccines, but from a population standpoint, it is, a good thing. Okay. But he's very for, lowering ultra processed food and sugar intake, which we are on lock and step with.
Yeah.
And so we are going to, support that if that's one of his initiatives, because we know, the diabetes epidemic or pandemic that's happening now because of our diets and our lifestyles, that we're not seeing that in the level of, penetration in other countries.
Yeah.
Basically due to big food. We will be, very supportive of that.
And I do think the conversation needs to be brought up about our level of chronic disease. And I mean, just to be able to have those conversations and preventing disease versus dealing with so many of the childhood and adult chronic diseases that we do, I think that may be a positive thing. Discussion is always, it's always healthy. As long as nothing is getting rammed down the throats of Americans, I think we're always open to a good conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're I don't know. I was at Harvard today, and I gave a presentation to the dental students at Harvard about oral health and how it can, positively impact the systemic health of our patients. And I always go back to when I was in my residency. I was taking a general practice residency at Northwestern Memorial Hospital I was taking out an infected tooth on a patient who had bacterial endocarditis, very sick patient who was, needed, she was in major heart failure due to the failing valves. And when I took the tooth out, pus came out of the socket, and my attending said, "Quick, culture that pus." And it turned out to be the exact same bacteria that was vegetating around the heart valves. And, in my first year of dental practice, we learned about oral health and health, how it goes together. But right then and there, it was absolutely solidified. And I practiced that way my entire career. And, and I saw, my patients not as just a set of teeth, but a set of systems, attached to a human. And, and everything we do in the work that we do can affect so many other things positively. And then neglecting them, it can affect it negatively.
Yeah.
And so, I can't tell you how many patients that would come back after scaling and root planing, and they'd come back for their 6-week check to see how they're doing and see how they healed up. And, they were pretty clean oral hygiene wise, but they were still really inflamed. And to hear my hygienist in the next room ask the patient about their diet, ask them about smoking, ask them about their stress level, how are they sleeping? When was the last time you were at a physician? And, and we had all these healthcare professionals that we can refer back and forth to as resources, because Jeff, as you said, prevention, dentistry lives in prevention. That's what we do. We do it better than anyone. People don't go to their physicians unless they're hurt or sick for the most part. Women are better than men because you were trained better, but with female things, but men don't go. Okay. But they come to the dentist twice a year. Cleaning is a preventive act. And so we've got this opportunity to talk to our patients about different problems in their, that they may be at risk for. And we've got this opportunity to ship them out to their physicians. Cause I can't tell you how many came back as undiagnosed diabetics.
Yeah.
And I live in the healthiest part of Colorado. So it's rampant.
So let me jump to another question, completely different topic, because this is something that's come up in our office. It's come up at several courses, especially when we talk about CBCT courses and things like that. The ADA came out with a position on lead shielding. Many of the states have not gone along with that, or a lot of dentists right now are really kind of in that quandary to shield or not to shield. And they're now, everyone's kind of in this, well, better to CYA, but there is true science behind the fact that you can get more radiation with the beam bouncing back underneath the apron than what you may actually have risk for exposure to. So I guess, how is the ADA answering that question now? Well, my state dental association has not really come on board. My state dental board has not really gotten on board that the indication is that every patient should still be shielded.
Yeah, again, this is a continuation.
Tough topic, I know.
No, it's a continuation of what we said before. Recommendations were made based on science that culturally we feel comfortable when there's a lead shield on our patients when we take x-rays. But the science has evolved. The x-ray heads have evolved. The x-ray sensors and the amount of x-ray radiation that we need to expose our patients to has dramatically declined. And the science shows that it's not necessary at this point. So we made a statement when we published it, and we made our recommendations. That's all we're going to do with it. Okay.
Yeah.
Someone wants to wear a lead shield. That is a low risk problem. Okay. And if someone wants to wear the lead shield, go for it. Okay.
Yeah, I have no problem with wearing it, but so many dentists agree with the science, but a little pushback from the patient, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to throw the apron on because they're going to sue me 20 years down the road when they have a thyroid tumor. Right. So I've heard a lot of dentists saying my state board has not yet come along with that science. And I guess, is that a struggle for you, where the ADA comes out and really comes to a consensus, puts out a paper, and here's the opinion, but then a lot of the state boards are kind of reluctant to go along, and then you have a lot of dentists kind of not sure where to turn, even though they have to be in compliance with their state regulations.
So first, I would say stay in compliance with your state regulations.
Right.
Okay, I'll say that. Second of all,
very, very safe. Well said.
So there's a perception that at 211 East Chicago, by the way, we are moving to a new facility in the next couple months. But at 211 East Chicago, where we are, our headquarters in Chicago, there's this perception that we're all sitting in there testing, doing things, and creating all these new rules and stuff like that. But basically, it's coming from the standards process. Standards are created for everything we have in dentistry. And standards are, all we do with standards is we convene the experts around the world. We do it within the country, we do it around the world. And when the consensus of the experts come up with a new standard, we'll publish that standard. And that's how things progress. And this is a slow process, but it's a very meticulous process, but it's a very important process. Because you've seen some appliances per se, like there was an appliance that came out a few years ago that was a rapid expander that really expanded incisors right out of the mouth. Okay. That was not an ADA standard or tested.
Yeah, I fixed a bunch of those.
Right. Well, a lot of people fixed them with dentures.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't put them back in. Okay. So it's, those kind of things. So, we're not making the rules. We're convening the experts together to have these discussions on what is best practices.
Yeah. Is there a process though, where you ever petition the individual states, where the ADA goes back to the states and says, hey, it might behoove you to update your statement on this, or update, I know that that's a tough situation, that generally it rolls the other way, but is there a process by which you can kind of petition back to the states and say, hey, let's have a conversation, where your dentists are now conflicted because, we've published these scientific papers, but yet your state regulations may not be in agreement with what we're saying. So
right.
I'm just curious.
Right. So we have, we have state boards and we have state dental associations. Most of them, in fact, all of them are not the same.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so what happens if there is a conflict between best practices and what's currently the law? The state dental associations, I think, obligation and charge is to try and change that law. And what happens is they can use the ADA's standards and guidelines and recommended guidelines as the bully pulpit to say, this is what our national organization is saying that we should be there. And then it's between the states the state and the state dental association and the state board to have that. But we're not going to go and say, unless it's something really egregious. So things like, and let's talk about really egregious, amalgams. There's a big push to remove the use of amalgams from dentistry by 2030. This is a world edict. And, let's say they found amalgams as being poisonous. And I know some people are going to say it is poisonous, but we know it's relatively safe. And, but if it is something that will harm people, we will say this is harmful. You need to stop. Okay. But we are a little nervous about the amalgam situation. Personally, I hadn't placed an amalgam for 99% of my career. But in, not every dental office or dental delivery model has access to, four-handed dentistry, rubber dams, really good assistance to make sure that those composites are placed in a perfect, as ideal a field as you can. So we're a little nervous about that.
Understood.
Do you want to dive in a little bit on some of the recent news with the ADA? I think Pearl was part of that development, as the ADA is starting to take a little bit more, maybe it's just perception, maybe it's always been this way, but seemingly more commercial relationships with some of the major vendors, and what that looks like.
Sure. So relationship with Pearl, we have a relationship with them in an investment setting. Basically, we have reserves, and we've got a portfolio, and just as your own personal portfolio, we've got low risk growth, medium risk growth, high risk growth, and that kind of aggressive growth, let's call it. Okay, and so part of our investment portfolio is in. We want to grow the dental innovation sector. Okay, it is so underplayed right now and underfunded compared to medicine, and it's slowing down a lot of the innovative growth potential that's in our market. And so we are looking at companies that we think will make major impacts in the in the dental space, such as AI companies, Pearl and Overjet. And we invested in both because we believe that AI should grow. The AI market should grow in our profession, and it is growing. And we're making a statement along that line, but it's really more about us growing our investment portfolio. Okay, we also invested in Oral Genome with salivary diagnostics. And we think that's an area that's going to grow. And we look at a lot of companies for growth potential and impact potential that we feel that would help boost the innovative energies in the dental space. So that's addressing that.
Can I ask a difficult question?
I don't know. Go ahead.
No.
No, go ahead. Seriously. Open book.
No. Yep. I mean, the question is this. I mean, this is just real conversation, and I think so much of you, and I thank you for being there to represent us out there in the trenches, because we all need to appreciate organized dentistry. What are your concerns, though, about people who will say perhaps the organization that puts seals of approval on particular products, should they maybe recuse themselves with regard to investment in companies that might be seeking a seal of approval? So how do you answer the people that say, is this a conflict of interest? Maybe we're all for the ADA investing and taking the funds so that you can promote our profession, but should you consider maybe staying out of the dental sector? What do you say to those people and
Sure.
To those concerns?
Sure. No, thanks for that question. The SEAL program rates or is granted to products that are available to the public: toothbrushes, toothpaste, floss, denture cream. Okay, those kind of things. We don't grant seals for dental technology. It's not. They're different. They're apples and oranges. Okay. This investment that we put in these three companies that I mentioned, they're not endorsements of those companies. They're investments because we believe that they're going to be a high growth company.
It's well understood.
People look at it, well, they like us but not them, or and then but not us, and it is really is an investment in the company and from a growth standpoint. So I don't know. I met with Dean Ginobili at Harvard today, and he was talking about he's on the FDA panel for review of class 3 materials, and he's like in almost 19 years he's been on that. He's had very few things to approve for oral technologies. Okay, there's none. Yeah. And we need to, if we're going to innovate, we have to, somehow stimulate the market. And there are some investment firms out there and investment funds that are specific for oral health, and they're really awesome, really awesome to work with. And hearing the things that are coming that they're investing in and I'm not at liberty to talk about that because I don't want to imply an endorsement of anything, but there's some exciting things, but we want to see more of it. Because in our practice lives, I've been in practice now 29 years. There's been some amazing technologies that have changed and improved how I practice. And how cool is that? And I remember, when I first started practicing, X-rays were in the dip tanks. I was all excited when we got those rollers, and then and I made the investment into digital. I could not imagine practicing without a digital X-ray at this point. Now we're at cone beams and and AI, and someday there's going to be AI for cone beams, and I know that's in the works. I mean, it's amazing, but we need to accelerate the innovations, and so we're trying to stimulate that.
Awesome, thank you.
Will your investment groups participate or have any insider opportunities with the standards committees? Will they be able to weigh in as industry experts in that particular arena to provide feedback to those committees that are working?
So the standards process takes testimony from all parties. Okay. So there's industry, there's universities, there's research, there's dental research, biomechanical research, microbiology research. Many are dentists, many are not. But the conglomeration of it is how the standards happen, and it's a tedious process. Things are really torn apart and debated.
Yeah,
and everything is considered before a standard is made.
Yeah, I have a colleague who sits on the AI standards committee now, and it's been it's a lot of work, a tremendous amount of work.
What a difficult thing. There's no precedent.
No, they're building it, which is maybe even more daunting than going back and reviewing class 2 composite standards versus, truly writing the standard for AI in dentistry, which and actually touches a lot that you don't even think about, your software systems that you're using that have nothing to do with direct patient care. AI is involved in a lot of those things now. So it's evolving even faster than the poor standards committee can work, frankly.
Well, we published a white paper standard on AI a few years ago, but by definition, the second we published it, it was outdated.
Exactly.
So consider
one last burning question for the night, because I think it's a hot topic for many. Workforce related issues that can kind of continue to plague, honestly plague every industry, but we're no different, and certainly feeling the crunch and strain of that. And we're definitely seeing, upticks in lots of different things. The compact, changes in licensure procedures, changing in admissions procedures. Mid-level providers now are legal in I think a dozen states now, or maybe 10. And so, where's the ADA sort of see this whole large issue of workforce, and what are some of the current initiatives and current objectives? I think that you're trying to get your head wrapped around to sort of come up with some pathways forward for solving some of those issues.
Yeah, it's significant. I was in the state of Virginia a couple of weeks ago. They had their House of Delegates, and and I got to hear that they are 1,000 hygienists short in their state. Okay, in a state of 3,500 dentists.
Yeah.
Okay, that is a crisis as far as I'm
Correct.
concerned, and we heard it loud and clear at our House of Delegates to find ways to solve this problem, and it truly is an access to care problem.
Right.
And if it took me 9 months to find a hygienist last go around for my practice in
Yep.
Colorado. Okay, and all those patients have to wait, or they just don't go.
Right.
But it's critical. So the House of Delegates is starting to get impatient, and they came up with some policies to fast track the workforce. And they passed, which I'm really happy with. Passed a fast track for foreign trained dentists if they can demonstrate competency. If they can demonstrate competency, they're not just coming in and getting a job. They need to demonstrate competency. They can work as a hygienist. Okay, same thing with dental students. I don't think the dental student thing is going to make an impact because, one, they're limited in time, and two,
Yeah.
when I got my perio competencies in dental school, it still took me about an hour to take an FMX, and
Right.
that's your appropriate time. So I don't think that's going to make a big deal, but we're finding ways to solve the problem. And we've known for a long time that this was coming. And but the hardest thing in dentistry to do is to train the hygiene workforce. We've got onerous CODA standards right now that we're trying to change. There's no scientific basis that we can see about the oversight of how many hygienists one dentist can oversee in the education process, and it was changed and reduced by 20%. But honestly, we've been producing 1-to-1 hygienist to dentist for a long time, and pretty much we need 2-to-1 hygienist per dentist
at least, because a lot of them don't work full time. So you almost need 3 to 4 per doctor graduating,
and especially in today's day and age, right? And because a graduating hygienist isn't going to work 40-hour work weeks, nor should they. It's so hard on their bodies. It's so hard on our bodies. And so they're working a couple days a week. So it's even less. It's a tough situation. So we're looking for ways to fast track that. I'm seeing dental offices just close their hygiene departments up. And I've seen dental offices hire new dentist as a hygienist. And, full disclosure, when I graduated, my first practice, my second practice, I was hired as the hygienist and dentist. But I looked at it as an opportunity. It was a big restorative practice in Denver. And, I was able to really, provide value for my patients and do a lot of dentistry on my hygiene patients, because I would have them for an hour to talk about, all the ththings they needed, and they, build that rapport. So there are some pluses there. So we are, the fast track there, the compact, we're, I think we're at 10, 11 states now, and we're expecting to double that in the next couple of years. And hopefully that'll help. But that's just basically taking from Peter to pay Paul, though.
That's right.
And so that's a problem. But our states are getting innovative. Alabama has a model that
I was going to say, I really want Alabama's model to get and they have good data at this point. They have decades worth of data to validate the opportunity there. So I think there's a lot to be said about their training model.
Right. And then we have, lobbied with the ALEC entity to fast track, dental assistants and turn them into OPAs, and oral preventative assistants, and where they can do, supragingival scaling and prophies and things like that. Because then when there's outside entities, outside of the ADA, outside of dentistry, the Delta Dentals of the world, other big foundations, CareQuest, are providing huge grants to bolster the workforce education in hygiene, and that's controversial, but hey, we're getting more into the workforce through creative ways.
They're smart to do that. I mean, if I'm looking at it from their perspective, because the reaction, on our ground level is leaving networks because we simply cannot afford to do the dentistry at the reimbursement rate if either the hygiene cost is too cost prohibitive to pay the staff to be there, because if the demand is so high, you're paying far above market value for that particular person, or you just don't have the staff and you need to decrease your patient volume because you're like, I can't even begin to see all of these patients. So it benefits Delta Dental and all of these other entities to look at those opportunities, because if the workforce doesn't get plugged, dentists are leaving networks as another alternative to the myriads of other things you mentioned, doing their own hygiene, dropping their hygiene department altogether, like hiring dental associates to come in and do it. There's a lot of solutions creatively that they're coming up with to try to solve the problem.
And most do not help the access to care issue.
None of them do.
Yeah.
Right. And, and periodontal disease and inflammatory process leads to poor overall health. And so if we are going to play our part, we got to find a way to solve this.
Yeah.
I did mention, I'm sorry, I'm going to take 1 minute.
Go ahead,
I did
please.
mention some outside entities that we, that are helping solve the problem. There is a perception that the ADA is, partnering with certain, entities that many dentists don't like. And I can tell you that our board of trustees, we are practicing dentists. We're in the trenches doing the exact same dentistry that you all are doing. We have the same stressors that you all have. And but if we are going to make real changes in this, we have to find ways to get to the table together and think this through. We've tried to legislate changes in the benefit model. It works, but it's very, very slow in a completely unregulated market. Okay. And so, and we're not going to stop doing that. We're going to try and make it so it is better. We've taken it to the judicial level. We have a huge class action lawsuit with a large insurance company right now, and we're not backing down on that. Okay. So, because of processes that we know are not right. And so we will stand up for what's best, not only for our patients, but for our own businesses, that we can make this work. Okay. And when we have these consortiums, basically it was a think tank event. It's just a way that we can get everyone to the table and start talking about this thing's got to change, because we're not meeting our obligations as professionals. And I'm proud and bold to take these steps to try to make real change, because the way we are doing it currently, the way we have been doing it, hasn't been working fast enough. Yeah. So that's where we're going with that. So I just wanted to take that, identify the elephant in the room and say that we are fighting for you every single minute, every single day.
And we can't thank you enough for fighting on that hill for us. It's really easy to stand and practice and criticize and say, what are my leaders doing? But unless you volunteer and take action like you have, it really, no one can really take that stance. And we all owe a lot to people like you who have dedicated time, so much of their time towards making this a better profession. So appreciated. Honestly, we could probably talk to you for another 2 hours. You could probably talk for another 2 hours, but don't want to.
He probably just needs to put this day to bed. I mean, honestly, he's probably been going since 5.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's when I started my run.
The good news is I don't think it's too far to his bed. So
yeah, I do think the commute is quite reasonable.
Yeah.
Let me show you. There it is. Okay.
There it is. Okay.
And it's made.
Awesome.
It's made. I make my bed. We didn't talk about wellness. Take care of yourself. Go to sleep. Eat well. Get your heart rate up. Lift some weights. Eat right. All that. Surround yourself with great people. And let's talk again. I always
absolutely. Honestly, this workforce thing could be a whole episode in and of itself, because it really is. It really is a concern now. But thank you for all your time. Thank you for what you do for the American Dental Association and for what you do for our profession. And we look forward to talking to you again. And congratulations on a very successful year with the ADA.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Jennifer. Miss you, Chad.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Okay. And everyone, we wish you a good night. We're going to let you all go to bed. Have a good night, everyone.